everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is Rob here at Smirking Gun Reviews, and today, well, you've clicked on it, right? I say this all the time. Like you don't know what we're going to talk about. Like, mystery title. Click on it to find out more. We're going to be talking about Martin Scorsese's The Irishman, a movie that I've been waiting for so long. I never thought we would get another epic. Scorsese makes epics all the time, but Casino was a long time ago. Goodfellas was even longer ago. And while I've loved so much that Scorsese has done over the years, The Aviator, Gangs in New York, The Departed, Silence, you know, we haven't had anything like this in a long time. Joe Pesci came out of retirement. So, The Irishman. And look, we're going to be talking. I'm going to be free with how I'm talking because it's history. Okay, if you don't know who Jimmy Hoffa was, that's okay. Google it, millennials. Google it. I love history. And the story of Jimmy Hoffa and the Teamsters and the Mafia, I love these stories. Jack Nicholson made a pretty good biopic. Danny DeVito directed a very good biopic with Jack Nicholson as Hoffa in the early 90s. It's pretty good. Jack Nicholson was very, very good. And it was a great period piece. But Scorsese can always do something that just blows everything out of the water. Right out of the gate, this movie should win Best Picture. Yeah, it's 3.5 hours long. Didn't feel like it to me. Not until it felt like the last 20 minutes or so felt like the end of Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, where I was like, okay, we can probably end it now. But I think part of the point is that this character of Frank Sheeran, while everybody else is gone, he keeps going. Almost like you could say, in my opinion, like a punishment almost. To have to be able to look back on the things that he's done. Because a lot of these, I think Frank Sheeran as a person, you know, the way they portray him here, he's a vicious person. I mean, he's got a lot of darkness. He is able to do a lot of horrible things. But I think that in his mind, it's things that had to be done. And then in retrospect, after what happens to Jimmy Hoffa, things kind of change. And it's when you see the collapse of everything and how he's kind of forced to live with that, the secrets of this. And everybody in this is pretty good. There's a few things in here that, like, Anna Paquin her character could have been played by anyone. The young version has a lot more to do than her older version. I think she only has like a couple of words that come out of her mouth, really. It's very monosyllabic. Jesse Plemons is fine in this. Again, not much to do. Wow, Jack Houston was freaking Robert Kennedy? Holy moly, I didn't even know that. I couldn't even, until I read it right now. Steven Van Zandt was Jerry Vale? What? Okay, I guess I'm like looking at this for the first time, and some of these are just really blowing me away. Ray Romano was pretty good as Bill Buffalino. Bobby Cannavale, man, I wanted him to be in more of this. If there's a director's cut that ever comes out of this, because I'll watch it, like a 4 or 5 hour cut, I want more Bobby Cannavale. Like, they tease him in this, and it's like all these people are awful, but for some reason, they're just fascinating. We love mobsters. You know, The Sopranos is like one of the best shows up until the end, you know. I don't know what it is. I don't romanticize it either. I'm fascinated by what people are willing to do. It's amazing. Plus you get your usual, like, character actors. Your Harvey Keitel's in this. I don't even know, like, if he gets maybe a few lines in this. He's really great, as always. But let's let's see if I can find anybody else that really needs to be talked about because there's so many people. Um, but our main cast of Robert De Niro as Frank Sheeran, Joe Pesci as Russ Buffalino, and Al Pacino as Jimmy Hoffa. When I first started watching this, I kind of felt like Al Pacino was miscast. And it was, I think part of it was because Nicholson was so good and he really got the sound, of Hoffa down and the mannerisms down. Really, especially the voice. The voice was so good. And you go, Rob, how the fuck do you know what Jimmy Hoffa sounds like? Well, I've looked at old video footage. That's how. Because I'm, like I said, I'm fascinated by history. I love history because we forget. It's one of the things that's great in this movie is like late in the movie, you bring up Jimmy Hoffa and people are like, who? So I mean, people forget. De Niro says, like time goes by and you don't even know it until it's already gone, and people forget things. History gets distorted. Things are remembered, not the same. Legends are created that way. But as long as people remember, as long as some people remember and keep track of these things. But as the movie goes on, Al Pacino really finds the role. It's weird to me. Like maybe you guys, maybe a lot of you don't notice that, but I felt like as the movie goes on, Pacino really finds his groove. He actually even starts to sound more like uh, Hoffa as it goes on. Um, Especially after he gets out of jail and stuff. He really captured a lot of that desperation of losing power and trying to get it back. Um, De Niro is flawless in this movie. Pesci is flawless in this movie. De Niro better win Best Actor. Pesci better win Best Supporting Actor. There's a case to be made for Al Pacino as well. If it wasn't for a few times where he's Al Pacino, and I know other people have talked about this too, but you can't help it. As soon as he starts going big, you know, he sounds like every loud Pacino character, that you've ever seen before. It's not bad. It's great. I mean, this is the first time. How is this the first time that Pacino has worked with Scorsese? Is beyond me, beyond me. But I mean, he couldn't have picked a better or bigger role as the ill-fated Jimmy Hoffa. And what I like about this is this feels like what Danny did in Hoffa in '91, maybe it was great, but it felt Hollywoodized a little bit. This felt more realistic, and I know that it felt more rushed. And I felt like we got to see more of what Hoffa's real circle would have been like. But definitely, I think that there's going to be kind of a toss around between who wins Best Supporting Actor awards for this movie. Maybe they completely get ignored. I don't know. But I'm right now this is like Best Picture all over it. I mean, 1917 sounds like it might be, one of those Best Picture nominees with Sam Mendes attached, and the subject matter and all that. But, and wow, this isn't my favorite thing I've seen. Like, it's up there it's in the top things I've seen all year. But I don't know if it's my favorite thing I've seen all year. I can't really put a Scorsese movie in one of that kind of box. Like, I need to sit on this again, and then I'm gonna watch this again in probably a couple of days, like all the way through. And I even thought about waiting to do a review of it, like after the second time. But to really get into it now proper, that we've covered all the hurrahs and everything. So Frank Sheeran, played by Robert De Niro, is a guy who paints houses. He starts out as a trucker and then meets Russ Buffalino, who gets him into basically the scamming of trucking games, which gets him into the Teamsters, which leads to him meeting Jimmy Hoffa and all these things in between. This movie has graphic violence, but in 3 hours and 30 minutes. Uh, it's spread out. It's your typical quick, brutal moments mixed with lots and lots and lots of talking. The thing is that this is the kind of movie where I could just sit there and listen to these people talk all day, about nothing. And a lot of these conversations are just kind of people talking about stuff, and I couldn't be more riveted. I sound like just about some of the other, like a lot like the people that have been describing this before me. But when you get into the real ways that all this worked, I think that's another thing that the Hoffa movie from the 90s was missing, was how the Teamsters worked and how Hoffa did what he did, and all the people that were involved with it. I think that a lot of people in that movie kind of got condensed into like certain one characters in that one. In this, you got a ton of people to try to remember. They also give you like the bylines of when this person died and when and how, which is great. The soundtrack's phenomenal. The de-aging stuff, I just started to just not even notice it really. The performance from De Niro was so great that it didn't really matter. Now I kind of like, I guess Pesci didn't really have to do any because his character was kind of starts out old. But by the end of this movie, Pesci is decrepit. Oh my gosh, it's so like they actually had to way age him down, like make him look old and just feeble and but still menacing. Pesci hasn't lost a beat. Not one single freaking beat. He can be of situations in this movie and still feel like he's the most dangerous man in the room. And I don't think he kills anybody in this movie. It's his presence alone that sells it. He's been doing it his whole career. And while maybe that's one of the reasons he retired, I don't know. But I miss Joe Pesci a lot. And as far as the history books go, a lot of this has to be up to interpretation because Frank never talked. It looks like he talked to a priest near the end, but this is based on the book, How I Heard You Paint Houses. And I just, while we can never quite know what some of these people were talking about, it does feel like whatever happened to Jimmy Hoffa probably was something along these lines, and you could say the same thing for like maybe the DeVito one, but this feels like how it really went down. This feels like the way this kind of stuff goes down. Hoffa's hatred for the Kennedys, and then his anger at the Teamsters and the mob, all boiling up to the point where they couldn't help him any longer, which is crazy because I'm not trying to sound sympathetic towards the guy at all. You know what I mean? Like his power hungry, the way he saw himself as like one of these guys, as because I reached a certain level, I'm untouchable. It never occurs to this person that you're just another guy. You're just another possible problem. I don't think he ever really understood the rules. Throughout this movie, he continues to like say the wrong things to the wrong people. To the point where when he does go to jail, they find somebody, he sees how easily replaceable he is. All they needed was another person that would just do whatever they wanted. And Hoffa, he was more of the hard ass. And so he gets put out of power and they find the guy that's more of a, just give it all up. I'll do whatever you guys want. This whole thing was always inevitable. And it gets really like hard to not hard to watch, but it's just when you know what's coming, when you know what it's leading up to, it's just kind of like watching I'm not going to say it's like watching a snuff film, but it's like stepping into history. It's so well done. It's so believable that you feel like you're in the room, and it felt like a little wrong. Like, oh, kind of like when Pesci walks into the room in Goodfellas at the near the end of that movie, and you just there's nobody there, and you just go, oh, this is so wrong, just seeing like how that goes down. It's just there's even a scene that scene kind of mirrors it where I love. There's a scene in the scene in Goodfellas where De Niro is talking on the phone about Pesci, and they tell him what happened to him. And then there's a scene in this where he's talking on the phone with Hoffa, and him being belligerent just it reminded me so much of that scene, except differently, where he's coming from the other side of it, where he's trying to save somebody that won't have anything of it, and knowing where that's going to lead. It's just so fantastic. I don't know how much more I really need to say about this. I don't know how much I've even really said because I feel like I've been rambling mostly. It's just, on every pretty much level, this movie knocks it out of the park. It looks great. It sounds great. It's acted great. It's written great. It's long. But again, like, for me, this is like nothing. I could have been sitting here watching this movie for another 2-3 hours easy. As long as there was enough story to go along with it. So I highly, highly, highly recommend this movie, and I feel like this is kind of it. And I think that's why I'm still kind of babbling about it, because once I'm done talking about it, I don't think we're getting another one of these movies from Scorsese. When you get to the point where you're having to de-age your actors, I think that's kind of the writing on the wall. And like, you bring Pesci out of retirement, like, this is the Swan song. This is the thing that you go out on. You go out on this high note. And while this was in theaters, limited, it also speaks to like how cinemas are now. Where Scorsese, like, with the things that Scorsese said about Marvel movies is, whatever. They're not movies. He knows they're movies, but he means like this kind of thing. These kind of movies, they're just not as prevalent anymore. I was talking to somebody about how when I look back from like 99 and past that, 99, 89, 79, 69, I can mention tons of movies that have stood the test of time. A lot of them from Scorsese. And some Scorsese stuff, like if you think about the last 20 years, his is the stuff that stands out to me. Some Tarantino stands out. But and will stand the test of time. Not every one of them. Shutter Island probably won't. Things like that. But there's so much stuff that's come out in the last 20 years that really won't stand the test of time. Cinema has kind of died. You go to the theater now to see the big blockbuster movies. It's the Disney movie. It's the Star Wars movie. It's the Marvel movie. It's the Pixar movie. It's. There are movies out there like Knives Out and things like that, and in other bigger cities that are not around where I live, you might be able to get a better chance to see some like cinema. Most of the time, I have to see things when they come out on Blu-ray because it's just they don't play around here. But it still feels like the end of film is pretty much like film. Stuff that, auteurs and directors, the age of the director is kind of over. So many movies are made by committee now. That the Tarantinos, I feel like Tarantino is the last, director. The last one of the last generation of good directors, because I'm not saying Spielberg's not around and all these other guys are around, but like, when's Coppola going to make another movie? Ever? Probably not. And do we need one? Lucas is never going to direct another movie. Probably. So we got Scorsese, we got Spielberg, we got Tarantino, and I don't even really like Spielberg. So, and Sam Mendes is a great director. You know, you can maybe make a case for him, but and you've got guys that that try and do some pretty decent stuff, but it really does feel like this kind of movie you're not going to see again, and or very often. It's going to be once in a blue moon. And while I'm not dismissing small independent movies that take the world by storm, and I don't mean movies like Crazy Rich Asians that just kind of surprise sleeper hits that are fine to a lot of people like. I mean the really the ones that hardcore moviegoers will sit there and go, oh, like walk out of the theater and just be like, I just saw something. Something that's going to stay with you forever. I still remember where I was when I walked out of American Beauty for the first time and rode my bike home and was just thinking about that movie the whole way home, just playing that movie over and over in my head. I don't have moments like that very often anymore. And I think that's what Scorsese was talking about, in a way. I don't think that he really, was trying to tear down anything. I think it's just frustrating as somebody as high level as Scorsese to see a lot of stuff that's just garbage out there. And right now, comic book movies, they're not garbage, but they're what's being mass consumed. And movies like this, people aren't taking chances on. And while Netflix puts this out because, hey, Martin Scorsese wants to put a 3.5-hour movie out on our channel, or however this went down, of course they're going to take it. They've made, movies that have been nominated for Oscars. And they want to keep that up. They're not doing any kind of like special treatment. They're trying to build a brand. It's just, fortunately, they got Scorsese that's helping build this brand with them. And I hope that he makes more movies with them. I just don't think we're going to see these movies anymore. I don't think we're going to see any more gangster movies like this from Scorsese ever again. And so that's what makes this really special to me. And it makes me want to go watch Goodfellas and Casino like pretty much right now. But anyway, this may be not much of a review to anybody. This is maybe just me talking about a movie I really like and the ramblings of a film lover. But I'm just so overjoyed that we finally got this movie out. And if you haven't watched it and you are a real film lover and you can sit on your ass for 3.5 hours without, you take a break, take an intermission. Do it. They used to do that. I think the last time I saw an intermission was Dances with Wolves. But anyway, that's me going on, almost like the guy in this movie. So again, great acting, great writing, great directing, soundtrack, cinematography, everything about this movie screams, give me all the awards without feeling like it's insisting upon itself. This movie just is, and it's fantastic. So if you like this review, please hit the like button, comment, share, subscribe, all that jazz. Otherwise, this is Rob saying have a great rest of your Thanksgiving, and we'll see you on the next video.